Hi, welcome to another episode of Coffee HEMA with me, Jamie McKeever, where I try and talk about HEMA and the time it takes to make a coffee. I'm bored of saying that. I'm sure you're bored of hearing it. So today, again, kind of continue on. We're talking about pedagogy. I want to drill a little to the side, move a little sideways, and talk specifically about teaching people who have disabilities or chronic injuries, and sort of some things you can do to help accommodate them within your classes and make sure that they are able to thrive as well as your more able-bodied students. And this is an area that my club has focused on inclusivity quite a bit, but this is an area that we fell short through for quite a while, and it's often kind of forgotten about when thinking about inclusivity, and it's important that it isn't, right? Because many people are living with disabilities or chronic injuries, and it's important that we make sure that they know that they can be included in a sport like HEMA. But the challenge you're going to have is that just saying disability or chronic injury, even if I lump them together, you get a massive variety, right? And it is very different, and there's not the same kind of challenge to teach somebody who lacks any kind of mobility in the wrist versus somebody who has myofascialgia. I'm sure I pronounced that wrong. Fibromyalgia, I got it backwards, or something like that, right? And there's no one-size-fits-all answer. One of my fellow committee members did some research about this when we were trying to look at it, and the general approach sort of suggested by kind of disabled advocacy groups for disabled access to sport is, rather than focus on this accommodation or that accommodation, the focus should be on providing the disabled student with the information that they require to make informed and smart choices about how to access your services, as well as fostering a culture where they're able to ask for more support when required, and that you're able to think about what adaptations you are willing to make, you're able to make for any drill that you've got, and making it clear that you are willing to make those adaptations when necessary to find some alternative path for that student. So some very basic things that you should do to try and improve sort of disabled access to your classes, right? Being clear about the sorts of facilities that you've got. I mean, none of us own our own facilities, or very few of us do, but being clear about things like step-free access, but whether you can changing facilities and this kind of stuff. Remembering that some disabilities could well involve needing a wheelchair some of the time, but being able to stand and do exercise for 2 hours, right? Not necessarily being able to sit in the wheelchair for the class that you got, but getting there in a wheelchair. Or it could be and being clear up front, in your website, in your public statements, in your code of conducts, that disabled people with disabilities are welcome, they can come, and that you will do what you can, right, to support them in whatever they need. Another easy step you can do is to ask people to inform you if they've got one, right? And you can ask them, if you've got like one brand new student, you can ask them directly. If you've got like 10 brand new students, you can just say more generally, if anyone's got any kind of disabilities or injuries, please let me know so I can work out how to adapt drills and accommodate whatever issues you've got. And this kind of asking is important, and it's particularly important because they will always be an expert in their conditions more than you, right? They're living with it day to day. They know what they can do. They know what they're able to do, and they'll know if you give them an instruction, and they'll be able to say pretty quickly, yeah, I can't do that, right? But you're not going to be able to predict all of these things. So making it clear that they can come to you, you're asking so that they know that they can come to you and say, this is not possible for me because of my condition. What can I do differently, right? And you're going to have to think outside the box. I have one student who's got wrist mobility problems, for instance, and there are some actions that they cannot do, right? It's just they simply cannot do them. So whenever a drill comes up and they say, yeah, Jamie, I'm sorry, you've told me to do this, can't, I will need to come up with an alternative. And it normally isn't an alternative way of doing the same action, but it's normally, okay, this is the situation we're describing. I'm going to come up with another action that works for you in this situation. Maybe it's suboptimal, maybe this is not the preferred action, but it achieves the same or a similar goal from a similar set of circumstances, and you're never going to be able to do this one action, so use this action instead, right? It's about understanding what alternative solutions there are to the same kind of problems. And another common and easy thing you can do is encourage people to take breaks whenever they need it, right? Seems simple, right? And like, how is that related to disabilities? Well, again, there is such a wide range of disabilities and things like that. And sometimes it is that people are able to do something perfectly well, but for short periods of time, right? And making it normal for them to just be like, you know what, now I need to pause, right? I'm going to pause for a little bit because I need to do that. You can carry on, kind of thing. And making that thing, so they don't have to ask you, they don't have to tell you or anything like that. They can just take their break, right? And match to their own needs. So, and then finally, the last kind of simple one I want to mention is, making it clear to them that if they want to adapt something, they should feel free to do so, right? They can ask you for help and encourage them to do so, but if you give them something and they think, that doesn't work for me, I'm going to try it this way instead. Making it clear that doing that kind of adaptation is perfectly within their gift. They are able to make those decisions for themselves. They're making to do that, and essentially that is part of the culture of doing it. So the 4 things I mentioned, right, just in summary again, and then I'll talk a bit more. Being clear up front, on your website that you will accommodate people with a wide range of disabilities, what facilities are like, so they can make decisions about whether they're accessible to them or not for their own. Making it, asking people to come forward and tell you about these things so that you could be helping them, making it clear that there's a culture that you're willing to help them, you're willing to adapt things, and making it clear that there's a culture that they are able to adapt themselves, as part of that one. And then finally, making it clear that breaks, changing pace, and all these kinds of things so that they can accommodate their energy levels within that is, again, something which is sort of standard culture. All of these things I mentioned will particularly help people with disabilities and or chronic injuries, but they will also be useful for other students, managing different fitness levels, managing different things that they are comfortable with or not comfortable with, or managing sort of temporary injury rather than chronic injury, and adapting to an acute injury that is not going to be permanently lasting. These things will help people who are suffering from those issues as well, but they will help them with no additional detriment to people with disabilities. So in expanding and supporting people with disabilities, you will actually also expand and support the other students as well, suffering from a wide range of other issues. And finally, just want to say that this is something which is hugely important to do. We have lots of really, really enthusiastic students who are disabled in some way, shape, or form, right? And their enthusiasm for HEMA and their willingness to kind of go at it and do all these things is not lessened or increased or anything like that. But if you're not able to accommodate them, you're not willing to make any kind of accommodations for them, these people who are super enthusiastic about swords will come and they'll get stuck and they won't be able to progress, not because of their disability, but because of your lack of willingness to accommodate their disability. So really, it is important and key for you to do so. Thank you for watching.